Probably 60 to 70% of our flights are emergency medical flights, and these come in through calls from missionaries down in the islands or in the mountains that are working back in these areas. We try to assess, if this is truly an emergency that needs medical evacuation to the hospital, because obviously it's expensive to operate the aircraft.
The Palawano natives in the mountains and around near the mountains have a really poor situation. They have very few resources, and if they have any problems or emergencies, there's really not much that they can do. They'll either just die in the mountains, or if there's some missionaries around that can help them, then they have some hope. They don't even have enough money usually to get to the hospital, so 20, 40 pesos or $2 to even get a tricycle to get transportation to the hospital. They can't afford that oftentimes. Or if they can afford that, or they can borrow some money, they'll get to the hospital and then they can't afford the medicines.
Here in Palawan, the groups of people that we're reaching are varied. We have the lowlander, Tagalog-speaking Filipinos. We also are reaching up into the mountain, both with education, but the helicopter medical work, to our native Palawanos. But the airplanes are more often going across the Sulu Sea here and working with the islands that are predominantly Muslim. So it's very overwhelming. Just to know how to reach each group is an ongoing prayer of ours.
Most of the flights we make for medical stuff for the indigenous people, they have absolutely no money, and emergency medical evacuation with a helicopter would be thousands of dollars in the U.S., but we don't try to charge anything or expect anything from these people, and God's been faithful in supporting and providing for this, method of operating.
When we bring patients in the helicopter from the mountains, or we help some Palawano patient to the hospital, almost always we will be taking complete care of them. So their medicines, sometimes if they can't understand Tagalog, we'll be translating for them. Sometimes they don't have pots to cook their food, or blankets, sheets, many things that they will need while they're in the hospitals. So we help them with all of those things.
For us to get home, it's 3 hours of hiking on trails about this wide, up on one side, down on the other. Very, very steep, rainy season, very, very slippery. When you come to visit us, you will probably give some blood to accomplish that. Times when it took us 12 hours hauling people out on a stretcher on those kind of trails. And then you add to that we have work that we're trying to do, 12 hours hike farther into the mountains. And actually we had to close down that work because when people got sick there, it was so difficult to get them out. It was just almost impossible.
You get back into some of these mountainous areas in this country, and there's indigenous or native Filipinos living back in these areas. There's still some completely isolated from the outside world. There's still a number of tribal groups that have not been touched or entered at all by people from the lowlands or missionaries or anyone. We desired to see the whole Philippines, covered with air support. That would mean having 4 or 5 air bases with a helicopter and maybe an airplane at each base.
And now, with the helicopter, 1 hour on foot is equal to 1 minute in the helicopter. I mean, we can go places and do things, medical emergencies. It can make the difference between life and death. There's no doubt about that. That we can get somebody out of the mountains, we can get them to the hospital quickly, efficiently, without the trauma of hauling them on these steep trails. To me, it's really neat to see technology, which very often is used for just rich people, but to have it being used for aiding the poorest of the poor and forwarding the work of God and giving that privilege to people who would otherwise never have it. To be saving lives, to be taking the gospel, what a fantastic chance to do that.